Have you ever found yourself pouring everything into a relationship only to watch it crumble like sand slipping through your fingers? You give your attention, your time, your loyalty, and yet somehow, the more you give, the further she drifts away. What if I told you that everything you believed about winning love through effort and devotion is not only flawed, but exactly what pushes her out the door? What if the real power doesn't lie in chasing or proving your worth, but in the moment you simply stop giving a damn? It sounds counterintuitive, right? But that's exactly the paradox that many men never dare to explore. Let's face it, we live in a world where emotional availability is praised and vulnerability is hailed as strength. But what if there's a hidden side, a deeper truth grounded in Stoicism that teaches us detachment is not coldness, but clarity? What if the solution to heartbreak and confusion isn't in louder declarations or desperate chasing, but in silent resilience and purposeful withdrawal? Are you ready to uncover the secret that transforms heartbreak into unshakable power? To discover how Stoic relationships redefine attraction and respect by flipping the entire dynamic on its head. This isn't about manipulation or games. It's about reclaiming yourself when you realize that your value isn't measured by how much you give, but by how firmly you stand in your own purpose and boundaries. It's about stepping into a version of yourself that no longer folds, begs, or loses himself in the pursuit of another. And it's about igniting a transformation so profound that she starts to lose her grip. Not because you play hard to get, but because you become genuinely untouchable. In this video, we will explore 10 powerful truths inspired by Stoicism that dismantle common myths about love and attachment. You'll see why the fall isn't failure, why silence is a weapon, and why rising beyond who you were is the ultimate act of power. You'll learn how to stop chasing shadows and start building the life that commands respect. This is about more than just relationships. It's about evolution, discipline, and the quiet strength that defines true men on their path. Stay with me, because what you're about to learn could change everything. The man who gave too much is dead. The man who rises 10 times sharper is here. Are you ready to rise with him? 1. The fall, losing yourself in the chase. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself why the harder you try to hold on to someone, the more they seem to slip away? Why the more you chase, the further the distance grows? This paradox is one of the most painful truths in relationships, one that most men fail to face with honesty. The moment you give too much of yourself, your time, your attention, your loyalty, without guarding the boundaries of your own identity, you begin to lose something far more valuable than affection. You lose yourself. When you start prioritizing her needs and emotions over your own, when you rearrange your life to orbit around her world, you become vulnerable in ways you never intended. Not in the healthy sense of openness or connection, but in a desperate, needy dependency that undercuts your worth. Do you realize that in that pursuit, you stop being the man she was drawn to in the first place? You trade the fire in your eyes, your mission-driven focus, your grounded presence for availability, softness, and emotional fragility that do not invite respect, but pity or indifference. Why does this happen? Because women, and indeed, people in general, are instinctively drawn to strength, leadership, and certainty, not to those who collapse under their emotional weight or who place others above themselves. What does it say when your whole world revolves around someone else? It signals that you no longer have a purpose outside of them, that your value depends on their validation. How can attraction survive when the man you were disappears beneath layers of neediness? You may have thought that loving harder, showing more care, and proving yourself endlessly would cement the bond. Yet the very act of chasing paradoxically repels. You become invisible, taken for granted, a placeholder rather than a prize. Have you ever noticed how the one who is always there, always available, becomes the easiest to dismiss? It's a natural law of human psychology, an unspoken rule in Stoic relationships. Scarcity breeds value, availability diminishes it. But it goes deeper than mere psychology. It's a reflection of your own surrender to emotional chaos. When you allow your feelings to dictate your actions, when you react impulsively to every text, every silence, every shift in mood, you lose control of your own narrative. You forget that Stoicism teaches us not to be ruled by our emotions, but to rule them with clarity and purpose. Instead, you let them run wild, chasing validation, drowning in overthinking, begging for recognition. Do you realize that this emotional submission is the root of your downfall? That by giving everything away, you inadvertently invite disrespect? The man who once stood firm in his values, who chose himself first, who led with quiet confidence, becomes the man who folds and begs. And what is nature's response to this imbalance? She leaves. This isn't a punishment. It's an inevitable correction. When you stop leading, when you stop choosing yourself, the dynamic shifts. Attraction evaporates because the foundation, your own self-respect, is no longer solid. This is the harsh, raw truth that many men resist. She didn't leave because you were not good enough. She left because you were not good enough to yourself. You forgot that before any relationship, before any devotion to another, a man must be grounded in his own mission and identity. You became soft, not in a healthy, open way, but in a dependent, desperate way. And that desperation kills desire. Have you ever wondered why you found yourself answering texts the second they came in, or letting slide things you never should have tolerated? Because deep down, you believed that if you loved harder, she would see your worth. But love given without boundaries is self-abandonment, not generosity. Can you see now how this dynamic spirals? The more you sacrifice, the less respect you earn. The more you orbit her, the less gravity you hold. Have you asked yourself what it means to be a man in the true Stoic sense? Is it to be soft and pliable for others? Or is it to stand unwavering, to act with discipline and purpose regardless of external circumstances? The man you were drawn to was not the man who folded under emotional pressure. He was the man who had standards, who held the frame, who moved through life with a mission that demanded his full attention. When you lose sight of that, when you put her at the center, you lose yourself. And with yourself, you lose the attraction, the respect, and ultimately, the relationship. This phase of the fall is the wake-up call. Painful, but necessary. It strips away illusions about what love really is. Love is not giving everything to someone who only offers breadcrumbs in return. Love is not pleading or begging for validation. True love begins with self-respect and boundaries. When you recognize this truth, that is the moment you begin to rise, not to win her back, but to reclaim yourself. Are you ready to ask the hard questions? Are you prepared to face the truth about how your emotions have ruled your actions and to break free from that cycle? The fall is not the end. It is the beginning of transformation. This transformation demands that the man who begged and pleaded dies. He must be replaced by the man who has standards, who sets boundaries, who refuses to chase. This man does not need constant approval because he understands his own worth. He does not revolve around others because he knows his mission is paramount. Can you imagine the power of becoming that man? What would happen to your relationships if you moved from neediness to necessity, from chasing to attracting, from emotional chaos to stoic calm? This is the profound shift that lies at the heart of Stoicism and Stoic relationships. It is the difference between heartbreak and mastery, between loss and rebirth. So, as you reflect on your own experience, consider, have you been losing yourself in the chase? Have you sacrificed your peace and purpose for the illusion of connection? And if so, are you ready to stop, to break the pattern and rebuild with clarity, discipline, and unwavering self-respect? The fall, difficult as it is the crucible in which the new, stronger version of yourself will be forged. Are you prepared to let go of the man who gave too much and embrace the man who gives himself first? Only then will you begin to truly understand the power of detachment, the strength of silence, and the rise of the Stoic warrior within. 2. The silence, power of restraint. Have you ever noticed how silence can speak louder than 1,000 words? How the absence of reaction can shake the foundation of someone's certainty? When you stop chasing, stop explaining yourself, and withdraw your emotional availability, something shifts in the dynamic that is as powerful as it is mysterious. Why does silence carry such weight? What makes it a weapon, a tool of transformation rather than emptiness? The answer lies deep within the principles of Stoicism and human psychology. When you have spent countless hours pouring your heart into messages, long explanations, desperate pleas for closure or understanding, and yet receive nothing but silence or cold indifference in return, it's tempting to double down. To send more messages, to seek more answers, to break the silence with words. But the truth is this: real strength isn't found in noise, it is found in restraint. Have you ever asked yourself why you feel compelled to explain your worth to someone who has already chosen to walk away? Why the need to justify your feelings to someone who does not reciprocate? This compulsion is the result of emotional attachment that clouds judgment and saps power. Stoicism teaches us that discipline over the mind and emotions is the path to true freedom. It is not about suppressing feelings, but choosing not to be ruled by them. When you embrace silence, not as a form of punishment or manipulation, but as a deliberate act of self-control, you reclaim your power. Silence is the space where clarity lives. It is the pause that forces reflection, not only in yourself, but in her. Why did she stop chasing? Why did the man she once knew suddenly vanish? What changed? This absence creates questions because people are naturally uncomfortable with uncertainty and unfulfilled expectations. She is left alone with her thoughts, wondering if the man who once gave everything no longer cares. But this silence is not indifference. It is discipline. It is the Stoic man's way of demonstrating that his value is not tied to anyone's approval or response. Have you ever considered how your constant reactions and explanations might have fed a cycle of taking for granted? When you react to every mood, every text, every silence, you give away control over your own energy and emotions. You become predictable, available, and ultimately powerless. What if instead you chose to pause, to hold your ground in quiet confidence, to let your absence be louder than your presence ever was? This is the paradox of Stoic relationships. By withdrawing your emotional labor, by stepping back with strength rather than spite, you shift the balance of power. Do you realize that this kind of silence forces her to confront her own feelings and insecurities without the safety net you once provided? It disrupts the loop of chasing and responding that made her complacent. When you stop explaining, stop begging, and stop justifying, you break the script. And in that break, the dynamic flips. She begins to wonder why you no longer seek her validation. She feels the silence as a storm rolling in, unsettling the certainty she once had. Are you ready to embrace this silence, not as a void, but as a weapon of transformation? This silence demands self-mastery because it can be uncomfortable, lonely, and misunderstood by those around you. It is a test of your stoicism, the ability to remain calm, controlled, and purposeful in the face of emotional turmoil. Have you ever asked yourself what kind of man you want to be? One who pleads and folds under pressure, or one who stands, firm, silent, and unshaken? Silence is not coldness or cruelty. It is clarity. It is a statement that you control your energy and will no longer be drained by someone who refuses to meet you halfway. When you cultivate this kind of inner discipline, you not only protect your peace, but also ignite a change in her perception. She starts to realize that the man she once thought she had is no longer available for taking for granted. That realization can spark doubt, regret, and sometimes even desire, but the power is yours to wield, not through words, but through presence and absence. Have you ever wondered how much of your past heartbreak was fueled by your unwillingness to embrace this silence? How many nights did you spend replaying conversations, sending paragraphs she never read, hoping for a reaction that never came? The Stoic path calls for a different approach: less noise, more strength; less chasing, more becoming. The transformation begins the moment you choose silence over explanation, detachment over desperation. You stop sending digital breadcrumbs, stop reacting to her life as if you still have a place in it. You become unreachable not to provoke, but to protect your progress. You shift your focus inward, grinding silently on your purpose, your growth, your mastery. Have you noticed how absence can haunt someone more than presence? How the silence left in your wake echoes louder than any text ever could. That echo forces questions she may never dare to ask, a mental loop of what happened, why isn't he trying anymore? And you, the Stoic man, do not answer. You do not fold. You do not break the silence because your energy is now invested in yourself, not in chasing shadows. This is where Stoicism and Stoic relationships reveal their true power. You no longer depend on external validation. You no longer bend your will to the expectations of others. Instead, you lead your own life with purpose and discipline, becoming a man who attracts rather than chases. How does it feel to imagine that power? To know that your silence is not weakness, but the loudest statement of all. To rise above the noise and be the calm in the storm. The silence that follows heartbreak is not empty. It is a space of creation, a space where you rebuild your identity on your own terms, where you learn that your worth is inherent, not conditional, where you understand that the moment you stop giving a damn is the moment you begin to rise. This isn't a game of manipulation. It's a journey of self-mastery, a journey to becoming the man who moves for no one but himself. So, as you reflect on your own experiences, I invite you to ask, what would happen if you embraced silence as a form of strength? If you stopped explaining and started building, if you allowed your absence to do the talking? The answers may surprise you, because when you stop giving a damn, she starts losing her mind. And that, my friend, is where the real power lies. If you found value in this message, don't forget to like this video and comment number 1 below to let me know. Also, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next steps on your path to mastery. Together, we rise through stoicism, discipline, and unwavering self-respect. 3. The mirror. Rebuilding your identity. Have you ever taken a long, hard look at the man you became in the pursuit of someone else's affection? Not the man you started as, full of fire, purpose, and confidence, but the version of yourself softened, compromised, and diminished by the weight of emotional dependence? The mirror does not lie, and when heartbreak strips away illusions, it reveals what was lost beneath the chase, the core of your identity. She didn't fall for the man who responded instantly to every text, who cancelled plans at her whim, or who bent over backwards to fix every problem she presented. She fell for the man who existed before all that, The man who carried presence like a quiet storm, who walked with goals in his eyes and a mission in his heart. That man had gravity. He commanded attention without trying to be liked or validated. But in the desperate desire to hold on, to maintain connection, you traded that man for comfort, for availability, for softness mistaken as kindness. Have you noticed how easily we convince ourselves that being agreeable and always present is a form of love, when in reality it's often the slow erosion of our own essence? This is the harsh reality many avoid confronting. By becoming who you thought she wanted, you became forgettable. In the void of your own absence, the version she loved fades into memory, replaced by a shadow of need and compliance. How does this happen? Because identity is not found in what you feel or say, but in how you act, especially when it hurts. Stoicism teaches us that our actions define us far more than our emotions or circumstances. When pain comes, will you crumble or will you rebuild stronger? The mirror forces you to ask the uncomfortable questions. Who have I become? Who do I want to be? Am I living according to my values or someone else's expectations? This moment of reckoning is the crucible of transformation. It is here that you decide whether to stay broken, trapped in patterns of self-abandonment, or to rebuild with precision and purpose. But rebuilding isn't about returning to the old you. It's about evolving beyond that man. It's about working in silence, grinding when no one is watching, obsessing over mastery, not for approval or attention, but for yourself. Can you imagine the strength it takes to show up every day, not to prove something to anyone, but simply because you remember who the hell you are? This kind of evolution demands discipline, patience, and a relentless commitment to your own growth. It's the embodiment of stoicism, where you accept the past, control the present, and shape the future with unwavering focus. You smash the mirror that reflected the broken version and forge a new identity, focused, stoic, unstoppable. This new man doesn't chase, he doesn't bend, he becomes. And that transformation is more than external. It penetrates to the core of your being, reshaping how you view yourself and your relationships. Have you ever realized how much your sense of worth has been tied to external validation? How many times did you seek approval through texts, calls, or efforts that went unnoticed? Stoicism teaches that true worth is internal, rooted in virtue and self-mastery, not in the fleeting attention of others. When you reclaim this truth, you liberate yourself from the need to be liked, needed, or understood by anyone else. This is the power of rebuilding your identity. It frees you from emotional dependence and anchors you in your own purpose. You become a man who attracts because he is valuable, not because he chases. How does it feel to know that the man you're becoming is someone she barely recognizes, and that recognition can haunt her because you no longer exist to fulfill her expectations, but to fulfill your own destiny? This is not revenge, it is consequence. It is the natural outcome of a man who refuses to settle for less than he deserves, who no longer sacrifices his peace for someone else's chaos. In the ashes of heartbreak, you find clarity. The mirror shows you not just who you were, but who you have the power to become. And with that power comes freedom, the freedom to move forward without chains, without apology, without the need for closure or validation. You no longer see her as the prize, but as part of the story that made the man you are now. Have you ever asked yourself what it truly means to lead a life of stoic relationships? To embody stoicism not just in philosophy, but in your daily actions and mindset. It means choosing yourself first, even when it hurts. It means holding firm to your values in the face of rejection and loss. It means building a life so full, so aligned with your purpose, that anyone who steps into it must bring something real, or they get left behind. This rebuilding is not a quick fix or a superficial makeover. It is a deep, soul-level shift that rewires your identity from dependency to autonomy, from reaction to response, from brokenness to strength. And it starts with a decision to stop being the man who gave too much and start being the man who gives himself first. Can you make that choice today? Can you commit to the silent grind, the relentless pursuit of mastery over yourself? Because in that commitment lies your resurrection, your rise from the ashes, your transformation into a force that cannot be ignored, bent, or broken. The mirror is waiting. The reflection is clear. Who do you want to see? The answer shapes your future and sets the course for every relationship that follows. 4. The shift, setting boundaries and protecting your peace. Have you ever realized that love without boundaries is not love at all, but a slow path to self-destruction? Many men fall into the trap of believing that patience and sacrifice will prove their worth in a relationship, that enduring emotional chaos or absorbing someone else's pain is the ultimate demonstration of love. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself, at what cost? How much of your peace are you willing to give away to be her emotional crutch? Have you noticed that the more you try to fix, support, and carry her burdens, the more distant and disrespectful she becomes? This is not a failure of love, but a failure to protect yourself. The Stoic principle here is simple yet profound. Compassion without boundaries is self-destruction. Are you clear on where your responsibility ends and hers begins? Do you understand that you are not her therapist, her emotional dumping ground, or her backup plan when things fall apart? This clarity is the shift every man must make to reclaim his energy and his life. Have you ever considered that, by absorbing her chaos, you have lost sight of your own mission? That instead of leading, you have become a passive participant in someone else's drama? Stoicism teaches us to control what we allow into our mind and space, to guard the fortress of our peace with vigilance. When you lack boundaries, you invite destruction. You become vulnerable to emotional exhaustion, resentment, and ultimately loss of self. How often have you stayed silent when you should have spoken up? How often have you accepted behavior you knew was unacceptable because you feared conflict or rejection? This pattern must end. Setting boundaries is not about being cold or uncaring. It is about being clear and protective of your own well-being. It is about respecting yourself enough to say no when something threatens your peace. Have you ever realized that boundaries are the framework within which love can actually thrive? Without them, love turns into codependency, confusion, and imbalance. When you set boundaries, you are telling yourself and the other person, I am worthy of respect. I will not sacrifice my purpose or peace for chaos. This shift is not easy. It requires courage to say no to guilt, to disappointment, to manipulation. But it is necessary if you want to build stoic relationships, relationships grounded in mutual respect and balance. Can you imagine what happens when you stop picking up emotional burdens that were never yours to carry? When you stop explaining yourself endlessly or allowing guilt to keep you trapped in roles you never agreed to? Your energy changes. Your presence shifts from desperation to calm authority. And this change, invisible as it may seem, is felt deeply by those around you. She will notice the absence of your reassurance, the lack of your constant availability, and it will rattle her. Why? Because she can no longer rely on you as a safety net. She must face her own reflection without you holding the mirror. This is the power of boundaries. It creates space for both parties to grow or to reveal who they really are. Have you asked yourself how much your past heartbreaks were influenced by your unwillingness to protect your own peace? How many times did you stay in situations where your value was diminished, hoping things would change if you just gave more? Stoicism teaches that the first step to freedom is recognizing what is within your control. You cannot control her feelings, her choices, or her growth. What you can control is your own response, your own boundaries, your own peace. When you accept this, you take back the power that chasing and emotional labor stole from you. This shift is a turning point. It is the moment when you stop sacrificing yourself for a love that demands your destruction. It is the moment when you start living for your own purpose. How different would your life be if you protected your time and energy as fiercely as a king guards his throne? What if you stopped saying yes to everything that slowed you down or drained you? What if you simply were unavailable, not as a game, but as a statement of self-respect? This is the mindset of a man on a mission, the man who does not negotiate his calendar or peace with those who never made space for him. Have you noticed how your absence begins to shift the energy in the relationship? She no longer takes you for granted. She begins to feel the void where your presence used to be, and that absence ignites questions. Is he really done? Has he moved on? Is he becoming someone she can no longer reach? This is the natural consequence of a man who has made the shift, who no longer carries emotional baggage that was never his to begin with. In Stoic relationships, this shift is critical. It separates the boys who chase from the men who lead. It defines the difference between chaos and clarity. It is the turning point where you stop being a participant in someone else's drama and become the author of your own life. This shift is not about revenge or bitterness. It is about peace and power. It is about reclaiming your throne, the time, space, and focus that belong to you by right. Have you ever reflected on how much time and energy you have given away to someone who never earned it? The mornings you sacrificed, the goals you delayed, the sacrifices you made, all for a maybe that never materialized. That ends now. Your time is your most valuable currency, and when you guard it fiercely, you become untouchable. The man who protects his time is a king in his own right, and the world will notice. The momentum you build without apology will draw attention. She will watch, not because she is invited, but because she cannot ignore the rise of the man who once gave too much, but now gives only to himself. The energy you cultivate in this shift is the energy of Stoicism itself. Calm, clear, unyielding. It is the energy that no longer asks, "What is she doing?" but instead asks, "What am I building today?" And that focus is the source of true power. This power changes everything. It changes how you see yourself, how others see you, and, ultimately, how your relationships unfold. When you shift your energy this way, you don't just reclaim your peace, you become a force that reshapes the narrative of your life. So I challenge you. Are you ready to make this shift? To stop carrying burdens that are not yours, to protect your peace with clear boundaries and fierce discipline, to reclaim your throne and become the man you were born to be. The path won't be easy, but it will be worth it. This is the Stoic way. This is the path of men who build, who rise, who lead. If this message resonates with you, I encourage you to like this video and comment #1 below to show your commitment to this journey. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next step in mastering Stoicism and Stoic relationships. Together, we rise stronger, wiser, and untouchable. 5. The replacement, purpose over people. Have you ever found yourself so consumed by a relationship that your own purpose fades into the background, overshadowed by the constant need to prove your worth or maintain a connection that slowly drains your energy? This phenomenon, where your life becomes centered entirely around someone else, is more common than you might think, and it's a silent killer of both identity and attraction. When you give too much of your time, your attention, your emotions, you risk losing the very thing that makes you valuable, your sense of purpose. Have you stopped to ask yourself what you are really replacing when you pour your energy into someone who does not reciprocate? Because at the core, the greatest replacement you can make is not swapping one relationship for another. It is replacing the emotional dependency, the chasing, the need for approval, with a relentless focus on your own growth, your own discipline, your own mission. What does it mean to replace a person with purpose? It means shifting your energy from external validation to internal mastery. It means becoming so invested in building your own life that no one else's presence or absence can shake your foundation. Imagine a man who wakes up every morning driven by a goal so compelling that distractions fall away, including the pain of heartbreak or the void left by someone who walked away. This man is not just surviving, he is thriving. He is embodying stoicism in its purest form. Purpose becomes his anchor, his compass, his replacement for the emotional chaos that once ruled him. How different would your life be if your focus shifted from what is she doing to what am I building today? This subtle but profound change in mindset is the gateway to reclaiming your power and reshaping your reality. Have you noticed how availability without boundaries can kill attraction? When you are predictably present, always reachable, always responding, you become background noise in her life. She no longer has to wonder if you are coming or going, because you are always there, orbiting her world like a satellite with no own trajectory. This predictability drains your value and fuels complacency in the relationship. But when you replace that availability with purpose-driven absence, everything changes. You go quiet. You stop appearing in her daily life. You stop reacting to her social media updates or engaging in the emotional back and forth. You vanish, not to provoke her, but to protect your progress. You channel your energy into your own development, your fitness, your finances, your skills, your mindset. This is the essence of Stoicism and Stoic relationships, growth through discipline and self-mastery. Have you ever wondered why the man who focuses on purpose is so magnetic? It's because he no longer needs to prove his worth through words or actions aimed at others. His value is self-evident in the life he builds. This kind of man doesn't seek permission to exist or validation to feel whole. He commands respect because he respects himself first. He attracts because he is fulfilled, not because he is desperate. When you embody this mindset, you become unreachable. Not in the sense of playing games or hiding, but because your energy is fully invested in becoming the best version of yourself. And that is the most powerful replacement of all. You are no longer a man orbiting her world. You are a man building his own kingdom. What happens then is almost predictable. She starts to wonder. She begins to feel the absence she once took for granted. She imagines a life where you are thriving without her, becoming the man she always said she wanted, but with someone who isn't her. This mental loop spins fast and brutal because you don't answer the calls, the texts, or the emotional invitations. You have cut the feed. You are a question without resolution, and that is the power of replacement. It disrupts the narrative she had about you and forces her to confront the reality of your growth without her. But here's the key insight. Replacement is never about replacing her with another woman. It's about replacing the role she once played in your life with something far greater. Your purpose, your mission, your relentless pursuit of mastery. Have you reflected on how much time and energy you once spent waiting for her approval, seeking her validation, or trying to prove your worth? Now, consider what happens when you redirect that energy to building yourself. You develop new skills, pursue your goals, and cultivate habits that elevate your life. This shift is not just practical, it is transformative on a soul level. It aligns you with the Stoic ideal of living in accordance with nature, virtue, and reason. You move from reaction to response, from dependency to autonomy, from fragmentation to wholeness. This transformation also redefines how you approach relationships moving forward. Instead of being the man who chases and folds, you become the man who leads and attracts. Your standards rise, your boundaries strengthen, your presence commands attention not because you demand it, but because you embody value. Have you noticed how, when you replace emotional dependence with purpose, your whole demeanor changes? You walk taller, speak with clarity, and act with intention. You no longer seek permission to exist. You take up space unapologetically, and that energy is magnetic. This is the essence of Stoic relationships, a dynamic not built on neediness or desperation, but on mutual respect and alignment of values. Can you imagine the freedom that comes with no longer needing anyone else to feel whole? The peace that comes from knowing your worth is inherent and unshakable. This is not an abstract ideal, but a practical reality, accessible to anyone willing to do the work. The journey requires discipline, patience, and courage. It demands that you embrace discomfort and resist the temptation to chase or explain yourself. It requires a steadfast commitment to your own growth, regardless of external circumstances. Have you asked yourself what kind of legacy you want to leave? What story you want to tell about the man you became? Will it be the story of a man who lost himself in the pursuit of another's approval, or the story of a man who rose from heartbreak, reclaimed his purpose, and became unstoppable? The replacement of emotional dependency with purpose is the foundation of that legacy. It is the bedrock upon which you build a life worth living and relationships worth having. So as you reflect on your own journey, consider this. What are you willing to replace her with? Are you ready to fill the void left by heartbreak with something greater than distraction or desperation? Are you prepared to commit to a life of stoicism, where purpose guides your actions and defines your worth? This is the transformative power of the replacement, not of people, but of priorities. Not of love as need, but love as freedom. When you embrace this, you do not just survive loss, you transcend it. You become the architect of your own destiny, the master of your own fate. And in doing so, you unlock a power so profound that no external validation can ever diminish it again. 6. The Ascension, becoming untouchable. Have you ever experienced that profound moment when the memories, the constant thoughts, and the emotional chains that once held you captive finally begin to dissolve? When the haunting reminders of her presence, the song on the radio, the scent in the air, the places you used to go, no longer trigger the pain or longing they once did. This is the Ascension, the stage in your journey where you move beyond the torment of loss and rise into clarity, freedom, and undeniable strength. But what does it truly mean to ascend? Is it indifference as a tactic, a facade to mask the hurt? Or is it a deep, soul-level transformation where indifference becomes truth? Have you ever questioned whether your desire for closure, your endless rehearsals of conversations, and your cravings for validation were chains that held you back rather than keys that freed you? The Ascension breaks those chains. It releases you from the prison of past attachments and elevates you to a plane where you no longer crave external validation to feel whole, seen, or valued. This is the ultimate reward of Stoicism and Stoic relationships, a clarity that brings freedom. How often have you caught yourself trapped in the loop of replaying moments, wishing for different outcomes or waiting for a message that never comes? The Ascension calls for the courage to step out of that loop, to embrace the present with open eyes and an unshakable mind. It demands that you recognize her as simply a chapter in your story, not the entire book. Have you ever asked yourself what it feels like to no longer bend, to no longer fantasize, to no longer be bound by someone who once had your heart, to reach a place where the past no longer dictates your present or your future? This is the essence of becoming untouchable. Not because you are bitter or closed off, but because you have finally seen your own worth and refused to settle for less. This is a man who has done the work, the workouts, the reflection, the discipline, the rebuilding, and emerged stronger, harder to reach, harder to shake, and impossible to forget. It is a transformation born from pain, but fueled by resilience. Have you noticed how the man who ascends moves differently? He walks with purpose, confidence, and an undeniable presence. His energy no longer seeks approval. It commands respect. His silence speaks louder than words, his absence more powerful than presence. This is the throne of the Stoic man, a place where time is guarded fiercely, priorities are clear, and distractions are kept at bay. Have you ever considered the power of reclaiming your time and space? Of no longer allowing your mornings, your nights, your focus to be consumed by someone who never truly earned it? Time is the most expensive currency you possess, and in the Stoic mindset, protecting it is not negotiable. Imagine the shift that happens when you no longer drop everything to answer a text, skip your workouts, or delay your goals for a maybe, a what if, or a never. This is the throne you must claim, the kingdom of your own life, and when you claim it, you become untouchable. You no longer ask, "What is she doing?" but "What am I building today?" This shift changes everything. It alters your perspective, your energy, and your trajectory. She will watch from a distance, perhaps reaching out, perhaps not, but it no longer matters. The man she once knew does not exist anymore. He has been replaced by a force, a frame, a king on his throne. This ascension is not about vengeance. It is about sovereignty. It is the silent declaration that you are the master of your own fate, the architect of your own destiny. Have you ever asked yourself if you are ready for this ascension? If you are prepared to leave behind the man who chased and become the man who builds? Because this journey is not for the faint of heart. It requires discipline, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to your own growth. But the reward is freedom, the freedom to live without regret, without need, without chains. And in that freedom, you find peace. This is the path of Stoicism and Stoic relationships, the quiet, strong, focused, and absolutely untouchable way. So if you're ready to rise above the pain and step into your power, I invite you to like this video and comment #1 below to show your commitment. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next lesson on mastering Stoicism and building a life that commands respect. Together we rise, we build, and we become untouchable. Throughout this journey, we have uncovered a profound truth rooted deeply in Stoicism and reflected in every relationship challenge you have faced. The moment you stop giving a damn is not the end, but the beginning of your evolution. It is the moment when you reclaim your power, your clarity, and your purpose. You have learned that chasing love, pouring out endless effort, or sacrificing your identity leads not to connection, but to loss. Loss of respect, attraction, and ultimately, self. By embracing silence, setting boundaries, and rebuilding your identity, you step into a new rhythm, a Stoic rhythm that transforms heartbreak into mastery. You understand that true strength lies not in emotional surrender, but in disciplined detachment, in the relentless pursuit of your mission above all else. The replacement of emotional dependency with purpose redefines who you are and what you attract. And when you ascend beyond past versions of yourself, you become untouchable, not through bitterness or coldness, but through unwavering self-respect and freedom. This is the Stoic path. Quiet, strong, focused, and absolutely unbreakable. The relationships you build from this foundation are not born from need or desperation, but from authenticity, mutual respect, and aligned values. So now, as you move forward, carry with you the knowledge that your worth is inherent and unshakable. Let go of what no longer serves you. Build relentlessly, lead with clarity, and above all, do not center your world around anyone who cannot honor the man you have become. This is not just a guide for relationships, it is a guide for life, one that invites you to rise above pain, reclaim your energy, and live as the man you were always meant to be. The journey is yours to take, and the power to transform lies within you.